I'm Electric Ghost. We're live on the air with Erik Springberg. And we're going to talk tonight about you being a certified life coach and mental performance coach. And we're going to tell your story. But before we get into that, I want to thank you again for being on the show tonight. And we always ask a couple questions before we get into the heart of your story. We ask every guest, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
I think what motivates me, first, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. What motivates me is doing all this work on myself and continuing to improve myself personally. And the more I can work on myself, the more I can help my clients and offer them advice on what does work for me and what doesn't. Because I go through life experiences just like everybody else. I just have different tools just because I've studied it and I've used my own life coach for years. So it just allows me to keep moving forward to be a better person.
I think it's always good to be able to take your experience, kind of pay it forward, and
Absolutely.
then listen
And
to other people's unique stories and be able to, you know, find a way to get people, to self-actualize, is
yeah, because it's for our brains to change, it's finding what is unique to us. And so I can offer, and I'm honest with all my clients, like this is what I'm going through, this is what I have been going through. I don't hold back because for one, it helps some connect to realize they're not the only one, and
Mhm.
also allows some trust to open up so that there's a better opportunity of helping somebody else.
Yeah, it's always like you think about like a singer-songwriter in the 70s. I'm a child of the 70s. And what was
Mhm.
like really cool with you get the Bruce Springsteens, the Bob Dylan's, Joan Baez, Joni Mitchell's, Neil Young's.
Yeah.
They're telling their stories. Like it's not just a love song. Neil Young's talking about a roadie that died of a drug
Mhm.
overdose, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
you can
Yeah.
tell like real stories. You
Yeah.
can actually tell something that could actually affect somebody. It's not just a typical like boy loses girl, boy finds girl, whatever.
Yeah,
That you
just a
can
kind of
go,
a standard story. It's
yeah,
unique.
you can go into
Yeah.
deeper things, and it opened
Yeah.
up the possibility of
Mhm.
like, oh, you can actually do this and have a voice like Bob Dylan, which opened up the
Yeah.
whole alternative music college radio scene. Is like you don't have to have perfect pitch, and that goes to like you can be an individual. You
Yeah.
don't have to be the archetype to have perfect pitch. You have to have this. You have to go through this. No, you can be yourself,
Right.
and
And it's
that's
more
your
unique that way, and it's more natural, whereas, we live in a society that there's a lot of programs to be like other people and look at examples, whether it's an athlete, a musician, and like, oh, I want to be like them, be like them. It's like, no, but what's unique to me? How do I want to show up for myself? And
yeah.
that's
And your secret
my true
sauce.
story.
Yeah, your secret sauce is you, right? Yeah,
Absolutely. And
it's
it's
not.
learning that, or even learning how to like listen to ourselves to know what it is we want from ourselves or need from ourselves. Like that takes a practice too.
Yeah, that's the thing I was talking about a couple of days ago. Is like listening skills, but then think about it, like to listen to your inner voice, right?
Yep.
Are you really listening to your self talk?
Yeah.
You're going around
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, I'm not the best. I can't do this. Oh, I know I'm terrible at that." Like, what are you saying? Like, what are
Yeah.
you setting up,
Yeah.
right? In terms of like not just listening to other people, but also like picking up your own cues and like the looking glass self Victorian
Mhm.
mindset, like self-examination.
Yeah, exactly. And it's easy to recognize what other people are saying to themselves, but for our own personal self, we don't always pay attention to that. But it's in there. It's easy for our brain to go to the negatives, and it's easy to listen to that story. But it takes work to recognize that story and go, okay, well, is this working for me anymore? Do I like these words? Because the words that we choose are really powerful, and they make a difference on how we show up. But it's paying attention to those words and that language within ourselves.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it's like the word, but also like the meaning behind the word, the context
Hmm.
in which the word is said.
Yeah.
And it's like musicians, it's like the space between the notes. Like, say a lot of times what we do is like it's the nonverbal. It's like what we didn't play, what we didn't sing, what we didn't say,
Yeah.
what we left out, what the space we left in. That takes time to digest. And sometimes we get so much noise and people hitting like all cylinders on instead of like, where's the nuance?
Hmm.
Like, what did that actually really mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it like I said, it takes time to sit with that.
Yeah, it's time is thing that people seem not to have because everybody wants
Right.
like if you go on the web, it's like everybody wants the 10 steps in 15 minutes and 10 minutes and 5 minutes,
Right.
30 seconds, 45 seconds. that's what I want.
Yeah.
When like I was a child in the 70s, like, you know, there's only 4 TV channels.
Oh, yeah, I was there too.
You know, I'm listening to the vinyl. I'm not skipping. I'm actually
Yep.
listening to side A of Pink Floyd or
Yes,
Sergeant
absolutely.
Pepper's. And now kids can just like I can get the whole catalog and I skip through it and it's background music. It's like, what did you really hear?
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
you actually watching? I watched my daughter and she's watching her phone, the TV, and got some other device on, like a
Mhm.
video game on. So you got 2 video games on, like
It
TikTok's on, this is on. What are you really paying attention to?
There's so much distraction, and there's an example where there's no way you can listen to yourself. There's so much outside influence going on, like, there's no way you can hear what's going on within yourself.
Yeah, another kind of child of the 70s, like in the 70s, had a Rector set, Lego, Lincoln Logs. I built my
Yeah.
own world. Kid
Yes.
today, they're Final Fantasy 7, the world was given to them.
Yeah.
Right. So where's the imagination when you don't build your dreams out?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when you're inspired to be a life coach, are there certain things that happened in your life that made you want to get into coaching? Could we point out
Yeah.
like some crucible moment that made you like, I should be a coach?
Yeah, there definitely was, and I always loved coaching, but it was athletics. It was being a basketball coach. I loved being on the court. I loved teaching kids and up to and through high school, just how to play the game, but also how to just show up personally. So I just something I always loved to do. And then my wife at the time, 4 or 5 years ago, said, "Listen to this podcast. I think you'd be interested in it." And it was all men that were life coaches, and I listened to it like 3 times in a row because everything clicked. Like I could do this, and I could still be a coach, and I could be a life coach, and it just opened up a lot of possibilities
In
for me. And I was
world.
so excited. So within a few months, I was certified because I just jumped right on it and just got into as fast as I possibly could and learned as much as I possibly could because I knew it was like that moment just clicked for me.
Yeah, I think the coaching that's interesting is you saw the synergy between being like a coach, a sports coach,
Hmm.
and also, you know, the idea that you could take this from like being like an idea or actual practice. You know, people need different practices to change in their life. They
Yeah.
got to reprogram some behaviors or mindset. And
Right.
if you're an athlete, you got to have a certain mindset to
Hmm.
actually be able
Yeah.
to win the game. Like,
And
can
I
you
love
handle?
working with athletes because I was a good athlete growing up. High school and college, I was good, but I could have been great because it was all mindset for me. I
So
just my own rejecting myself and self-talk, like you talked about earlier, just how we talk to ourselves, like that was me. So I love coaching athletes because it gives me like, hey, you can do it differently. It doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to
Mhm.
beat yourself up, or if you're nervous, it's okay to be nervous. It's understanding that emotions can be a part of the game, but is it going to influence you in a way that is you're not getting the result? And so that's what the mental performance certified was specifically for athletes. And that was why, because it's just, I still love to do it. And just, I'm open to coaching anybody who's available to looking at their life differently and looking what is not working for them now, whether they're an athlete, a teacher, a parent, an executive, say it doesn't matter. That it's just, we all are programmed a particular way. But once we realize it doesn't work for us anymore, it's like, okay, now what do I do going forward? Get some new tools.
Yeah, 'cause it's like the roll with the punches. Because I work with a lot of, I'm a producer, um, doing music and stuff. One thing I
Mhm.
find is people tend to want to obsess about perfection.
Yeah.
And in the arts, and then I'm in the business. I'm on this. I have a site. My main gig is I'm a software designer,
Okay.
and a lot of times in software, it's kind of like inventing things. But like we might have a plan, but it's the happy accident. Like because we're like in this kind of age of like magic in terms of IT.
Hmm.
And so you could have an idea, you could have a plan, but then you're working things out in your demo beta zone, and something comes that was unexpected. It's
Yeah.
actually better than the plan.
Then yeah, right.
See, then being able like a musician, like it's something I hit a note wasn't expected, but instead of saying we start from take one, start again, you evolve the song. You actually
Yeah.
the rest of the guys in the band say, hey, that's a different way to look at this. You find a different approach. You actually keep on evolving the song rather than saying
Right.
you got the song wrong.
and being open to all those possibilities, and like you said, not being so structured. This is the way we're going to do it, and we can go back and start over. But like, no, that we're open to the
Yeah,
possibilities.
an
It sounds better or it
agile
looks better.
mindset instead of like a waterfall mindset.
Yeah.
In our software development, we live in is a kind of agile incremental development. And
Hmm.
people, what's that mean? Every day on your cell phone, you see an update on your app. It gets updated to another version. Why? Because something we knew the day before, now we know something different, so we changed it. So
Yeah.
the software is never done. The old
No.
school way was it had a certain end. Now we have incremental development like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's always open. It's not closed. It's not a
Yeah.
closed loop. That loop, that the structure, foundational structures can change in that code. So I
Hmm.
find that that's very similar to like your brain. Like you can change your
Yeah.
fundamental like habits if you actually start to think about reprogramming, right?
Yeah.
The way you
And
reprogram a computer, I can change the fundamentals if I want
yeah,
to. I can
absolutely. And
change
we
the
get these
structural
thoughts where
base.
I've always been this way, or this is the way I do it. That's just who I am. And it's like there's that closed minded where just that growth stops. Versus like one of the things I'll tell from the first call when I'm working with somebody is I'm here to challenge your mind to look at life at a different perspective. And then if it works for you, then we'll look at tools to go in that way. And I can't make the choices for you, but I'm going to challenge your mind to like, hey, what about this or what about this? How does that look for you? And then kind of almost like shock people sometimes, like, well, I never thought of it that way, or that does sound, I like that way better. And it's like, okay, let's go that route then, because you get to decide what's best for your life, and whatever's working for you now or not working for you is not going to be the same thing to get you where you want to be. You might be able to still get there, but is it kind of grunting through it and forcing yourself into a situation, or do you want to like make some changes and it's more of a you want to versus have to?
Well, I think there's a certain sense of fear and
Yeah,
safety, right? So a
absolutely.
lot of people will stay in something that's not ideal, could even be toxic, it could be something that's like codependent in a way,
Yeah,
and because it's what they know.
yeah,
And what's unknown is the breakthrough to get out of that loop is
yeah.
unknown. What you know is the loop.
Yeah, and it's
The
easy
loop,
for our brain to keep making these decisions because it doesn't have to produce much energy. It doesn't have to think about it. Even though it's not getting us the result, the brain's like, "No, this is just what I know how to do."
yeah, it's
And so just
unsafe to go to the area that
it's
you
there's
don't.
too many unknowns, and that's scary. Like, well, I don't know how to do it. I might as well be unhappy over here. But it's like, well, if you're going to be unhappy over here, jump into that unknown. You might be unhappy at first because it's changed and it's new and it's different and you don't maybe know the right direction you want. And then, or if the brain's like, well, I don't know what to do. And then sometimes it'll just stop thinking because it's, well, I don't know what to do. So I won't do anything. I'll just go back to what I was doing.
Well, it's
That
the bold,
safety.
yeah, it's the boldness of action. Like if
Hmm.
you sit going into the library, you read all these things, right? You take a bunch of courses, you get all this knowledge, but you never have an action plan to implement anything you did.
Yeah.
You're just like a library of all this information, but you haven't done anything actionable.
Right.
The bold take action, right?
Yeah.
The people who are successful, they take action, and whether or not they make it on the first try or the fifth try or the 100th try,
Right.
they're willing to take the try. And
Yeah.
that's the
It's
difference
can,
between you and them if you're not doing that.
yeah. Because you look at those actions you're taking now, are you getting the result you want? Like, well,
Yeah.
no, I'm not. Okay. Well, let's look at a new perspective, think about it a different way. You're going to take different actions though that way. And like you said, you still might not hit it exactly the next time or the next time, but you're on a trajectory that's more of a positive momentum that you want for yourself versus being, oh, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I'm not taking any action, and so I'm just going to keep living it this way.
It's
And
also like, in terms of sports, like, musicians and sports, I think is similar. Like 10,000 hours on the piano gets me to the point where I don't have to look at it and I
mhm,
can just in muscle memory, right?
right,
Like you do your 10,000 hours in sports and you've got down how you actually do all those plays and get through a game and to react to things that maybe weren't
yeah,
in the plan, but you've got kind of like this situational awareness and you
mhm,
can think on your feet
yeah,
and you can call up which plays will work or kind
yeah,
of be able to come up with something just because you trust yourself
right.
that
The trust, absolutely.
I can come up with something I can respond to that even if it wasn't in my playbook.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's you're as an athlete, like you're doing same the basketball player as an example, and you've been working at it for 10,000 hours, and it just learning how to trust yourself, and then sometimes it's that instinct that you've been able to develop for yourself too. Like, okay, well, this is just what I know to do right here in this situation, based off defense or whatever play you're running, and it makes it automatic versus hesitation, thinking about it. Oh, too late.
Overthinking.
Overthinking. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Overthinking kills a lot of things. Like if you're an actor, you overthink, then you don't get the part, right?
Yeah,
If you're a musician and you overthink, you don't get the gig.
yeah.
Um, it's like the people who kind of can flow with it, kind of be in that flow state that can react to it, can handle the roll with the punches
Hmm.
rather than kind of like freeze up when they get
Yeah,
it. The,
yeah.
the, the freeze up is not going to really work without good.
No, it's not. No, and that's where it's. And then if you are in that situation, it's like, okay, well, this is what happened to me now. If I come back to, as an actor, and if I come back to an audition, like, how do I want to respond next time? Okay, what do I need to work on now to overcome that freeze response and that program to show up differently the next time?
Yeah, it's like kind of like it. Like again, it goes back to like at the base of it. I feel it's like self love
Yes.
because if you're somebody that's like not able to actually execute, it's probably because a lot of doubt, a
Hmm.
lot of fear, lack of
Yeah.
safety,
Yeah.
and a lack of a permission structure
Yeah.
in your mind that you can even do anything.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a uh, common for a lot of my clients is self love. Even and some people are like, well, I don't even know what that looks like. What does that mean? Okay, well, for one, I think you can look up a dictionary and read it, but it's also individual to us. What does self love mean to me? What does it mean to you? And somebody I talked to recently was like, well, I don't know what that means. So it's like, okay, well, let's just talk about some things that you do for yourself. Well, I like to work out. That's self love. I like to cook. Do you enjoy cooking? Oh, I love it. That's self love.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like individual to us on what it means, but it's allowing ourselves, like at the beginning of the conversations, to really listen to ourselves and think about it. And what do I like to do for me? Oh, I like going for walks. I like getting out in nature. I like doing puzzles. I like listening to music and meditate. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's all self love.
He brought it down from the macro to the micro. He brought it
Yeah,
down to the individual instead of the group. Because
right,
like, a lot of people like they might have been kind of turned off because they think it's foo-foo and it's new age, and they don't really trust that, right? They don't
yeah,
know what that means. They can't put their mind around it. It
right.
seems too fuzzy. It's too fuzzy.
Absolutely.
It's too
Yeah,
furry. It's too, oh, I don't know. It's like doesn't seem substantial. But then when you bring it down, like at the micro level, like what do you enjoy,
hmm,
right? What do you love?
yeah.
What do you
What do you
like?
love?
You know,
Yeah,
and then you make it like about them.
yeah.
Because when it's always about somebody else, you get this label. As I put the label,
That's
put the
yes.
label.
Put the label exactly, and that's what we're taught in the society. And it's all we're like, look outside of ourselves. Like go buy something. Even go drinking, go party. It's like everything outside of ourselves
External, yeah, instead of
but
internal,
external. And
yeah.
I'm part of this men's group, and one of the guys talked about like, well, how do you fill your own cup? And another guy was like, I like to think of it as a kid. I want to go play. I want to go get some ice cream. I
Hmm.
want to play video games. Like we all have this inner child in us, and
It's
sometimes
that
we
kid.
fight against it. So like, what do we like to do to play?
What's that kid
Uh,
like when you're a kid, right? And you jumped on that skateboard, you didn't care if you're going to fall off of it. You
yeah,
wanted to learn how to do it.
right,
By the time you get to be an adult, how many adults that have never skateboarded are actually going to do that because they're maybe scared about what people are going to think?
right,
They're scared about what
absolutely. What
it's going
others
to
are going to
hurt.
think.
How many people like never knew how to ride a bike actually learn how to ride a bike if they're 40 if they never
Yeah.
did it because
Or
they
even
don't.
get
They're
back
so
on it even if they know how, just to go
yeah,
out and kind of that freedom that we felt as kids to get on a bike. My brother liked to skateboard, I was on the bike, and we just go.
yeah. You just go. I mean, I was jumping ramps, no helmet.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a
There
child
were
of
no
scene
rules.
watching Evil Knievel, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to try that evil thing. I'm going to put the bricks in
Yes.
the middle of the street and try to jump this, jump
Yeah.
that, and it's like and skin my knee and
Oh, absolutely.
twist my handlebar. And I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, why not? Let's try it again.
Yeah, do it again. What and then adapt and fix it, and then go back and try it again, try it again. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's like, but you get to be an adult and you start saying, "Oh, I can't do that." The thing about it I find with creative people is we still have the childlike curiosity.
Yeah.
People wonder, like, "Well, how can you get on stage? How could you go do that? How could you put that work out there and take the hit from the haters?" It's because you still have that childlike curiosity and intensity to, like, be passionate and not be kinda pushed down and whittled down to, like, "Oh, I'll just go to my cube and wait
Yeah.
till it's 9 well, it's 5 o'clock and go home."
Yeah. Yeah, I love that creative side. Like the people that have that creative mind, I think is so fascinating to me because it just opens up all these different possibilities. And like, especially like a musician, or I mean, and in the programming and stuff, it's like, okay, well, let's explore. What can we build? What can we make? What's possible? And I think that's always been fascinating to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have it, but they've been kinda pushed down to feel like you can't write unless you're a freaking Stephen King.
Yeah,
You can't play guitar unless you're Eric Clapton.
yeah,
So if you get so I was a child of the '70s, and I remember the punk aesthetic. I
hmm,
remember seeing the Ramones, I remember
yes,
seeing, like, The Clash and the
yeah,
Sex Pistols, and the thing about that is, like, it was a radical change. You don't have to have perfect pitch. You don't have to be
hmm,
Jimmy Page. You don't have to
yeah,
be John Bonham. You could go out there and you could be passionate.
right,
You could have something to say, and it came back with that grunge when, Nirvana came. Is
hmm,
like sometimes it comes back that people realize, I don't have to be this super hype person that's beyond anybody's capability. They don't have to be the Jimi Hendrix, the
yeah,
Coltrane, the Sunrise. You don't have to be that. You could actually still say something, and it still is valid to say it.
yeah. Getting outside that box of what we think it should be like based off of other people and how, as somebody else, another musician, and I want to be like them, or but I want to do it my own way. And it's just being able to have the creativity and the that self-love to reach outside those boxes and try something new for ourselves.
Yeah, people hit the wall, and they're like, I think the pandemic made people realize, like, I don't have to be doing that commute. I don't
Yeah,
have to be in that cubicle. So
yeah,
then maybe that child dream of, oh, I could write. Oh, I could
hmm,
be in a play. Oh, I could be a painter. I could start a podcast. I could
yeah,
create a business. I could
yeah,
actually maybe dive into it. Cause now I'd have time to actually think.
mm, yeah,
I'm not on the
mm,
on the hamster wheel. I can
right,
actually slow down a little bit and
hmm.
and assess. And I was wondering, like, in terms of like getting people to, get the noise out. Well, what are steps for you, like when people are just like got too many inputs, they don't have focus, they don't have clarity. What do you do to help them?
I think it's starting off with just kind of an awareness of where they're at right now, and if it is that noise, or they don't know what to do, or I'm feeling stuck. But it's allowing time to sit with yourself and being okay with whatever thoughts come up. And emotions can be uncomfortable, whether it's
Mhm.
angry, if you're sad, or nervous, scared, whatever it is, those emotions can be uncomfortable. So it's learning how to sit with those emotions. So a lot of times emotions come up and we want to go do something else. Let me go drink, let me go video games, let me buffer somewhere else because I don't want to feel these uncomfortable emotions. So it starts by allowing yourself to feel the emotions first, and it doesn't mean you have to sit in it for an hour. It's just start small. Like maybe it's just a couple minutes. Maybe you just sit there and kind of witness. Oh, I'm feel it in my chest. I feel it in my stomach. Like there's some kind of a sensation within my body where I feel this sadness, as an example. Okay, let me sit within it for a moment. It's going to be uncomfortable, but let me sit there. And when I first started getting coaching myself, for me personally, I had to print off a list of emotions because I never
You
knew how to
write it
process
down,
them.
journal it.
I didn't know what emotions were. Like, my coach is like, well, does it feel good or bad? Let's start there. Like, oh, it
Yeah,
feels bad. Okay, now let's break it down even more. Are you angry? Are you upset? Like, so it took me time to really label the emotions, but I had to sit
mhm.
with them first just
Yeah,
to
to
even
assess it.
assess it. Yeah. And so just being aware of it first. And like you said before, a lot of people want to jump, like, how do I just fix it? How do I get through this? I don't want to feel this anymore. It's like, it's not going to work because
Yeah,
it's going to keep coming back.
that's a
And
quick fix is the problem because, like, people think that if you see somebody successful, they got there from 0 to 100.
right, because all you see is the success.
Yeah, and they might want to just tell that story because it feels good to actually like say I'm just this miracle on Main Street. But
Yeah.
the idea it's hard work,
Yeah.
and there's mistakes, like there's accidents, there's every rung on the ladder. Like as a musician, I would tell people like I got demos and stuff that never gets the light of day.
Yeah.
Right? It's how I got to something. Right? So I don't look at those things as failures. I talk to authors, they got like manuscripts just sitting on the shelf, but sometimes they pull from their archive of unused manuscripts and pull it into their new idea, and that
Oh,
new
that's
idea
nice.
actually works.
I like that.
So you
Yeah.
don't a lot of times the stuff you've done, and even if it's been bad
Mhm.
or you've experienced trauma or it's been
Yeah.
tragic or melodramatic or it's melancholy, artists we use that and we have a
Mhm.
cathartic process of pulling it inside what's inside and what's outside and synthesize it
Yeah.
into the art,
Yeah.
right? Whether you're an actor, method actor on stage, you pull the things that have happened to you and you make people believe that you're that character.
Yeah. And I would believe that they've allowed themselves to feel those emotions so they can help it show up in another
Yeah.
way when they're ready to do so, or putting it into music. Like, okay, now I know what this emotion feels like. Now let me express it in my way.
Yeah. It's all
Is-
about kind of taking that and working through it, whether you're journal it,
Yeah.
art therapy, you put it down on a voice memo,
Hmm.
you talk to somebody else about it,
Yeah.
and then some people I had somebody said that like they actually had a tape of their client and kind of played it back what they were saying
Yeah.
and pointed out what their self-talk was.
Yes.
And when they
Yeah.
got
That
to
works really
hear their
well.
self-talk, they were like, "Oh, I never really listened to myself."
Yeah. I had one gentleman one time, he kept saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And he was like, to me, he was like, he was just stopping himself. So I listened. The next few days, I want you to tally how many times you say, I don't know. Just pay attention to it. And he stopped after a while because it was like, oh my God, I'm saying this all the time. It's just, I don't know, I
Mhm.
don't know. And so he was stopping, in my opinion, he's stopping his brain from allowing like what is possible because it's like, okay, let's just stop. I don't know what to do. But it
Yeah,
was
it's like
an
I
awareness.
can't
And
compute. It's like it
yeah,
keeps on hitting the can I compute, can't solve it.
exactly.
It's just on that loop. It's like I
Yeah.
don't have enough information. And that's like a trust problem. That's like a self-trust.
Yeah, there's some trust, yeah, trust things there too. Absolutely. And I think it's again within the society we're all programmed a particular way based on our childhood or who brought us up as, some adult figure, parent, coach, teacher, traumatic events, we've all of us have experienced something in our lives and it's all going to lead us to where we are today, and it can influence us going forward unless we bring up that awareness of how is this affecting me and what kind of work do I need, whether it's a coach or a therapist or a counselor, whoever it happens to be. It's possible to allow that circumstance to make some changes for ourselves going forward with
What
that
do you think
awareness.
what do you think the biggest barriers are to that are though, from people reaching their full potential?
Um, I think it's the trusting ourselves, the self love, self confidence. That happens especially in athletics. There's a lot of self confidence issues, and just not being allowing the athletes to, even when I was an athlete, not even allowing myself to show up with my full potential because of all my negative self talk was just
Mm.
cutting me down to even get me where I wanted to be. Not even necessarily on the court, but even off the court and doing workouts and just gaining in the weight room and practicing dribbling or throwing a football, whatever sport it was the lack of self-confidence that was leading me in a direction that I didn't want. And I knew it wasn't, but I just also was like, I didn't have the tools at the time
Get
to
out of it. Yeah.
understand, get out of
Is
my
it
own
like
way.
a comparison trap? Is it that if you run it, you're looking at somebody that's doing what you think you can't do, and then you're hitting that wall
Yeah,
and
it's a
then thinking,
self-rejection. And it's
yeah,
just if, somebody else might reject me, but let me reject myself first before I even get to that situation.
oh, so you don't even have to.
You don't even have to. Yeah. That I lived through that a lot, and it's something I still work on it because it's a program that my mind goes back to, and then but I'm aware of it now, and so then I can
Yeah,
go, nope,
it's something
okay,
you gotta keep
brain,
on working on, right? Because that's what
yeah,
people forget, like, when you talk to, like, people who are, like, in addictive situations,
hmm
it's a constant thing you have to work on.
Yeah.
There's
I
no
haven't had a
magic button, right? It's just like you
yeah.
have to work on that your whole life. It's not like it doesn't, just magically go away.
Yeah. I haven't had a drink in over 13 years. I'll never have another one, but every once in a while I'd go to a restaurant and you see people drinking and it's like, "Oh, it'd be nice to have a glass of wine with this steak." And it's like, "Nope, not happening. Let me choose something different, alternate route." But it still will show up sometimes. And just
Yeah.
was
You just
that's
gotta
the
have that.
pattern my brain knew for so many years.
Yeah, it's hard to
And
get out of that. But
yeah,
then people, they like you beat yourself up if you slip. Like, and then people get
right.
like, well, if I slip a little bit, then I'm gonna slip all the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a slippery slope. So if you have a mindset like, hey, this is something I'm gonna have to work on,
Yeah.
right? And
And
you have to.
it's a
It's just like,
conscious effort every single day, even just me working on myself and paying attention to my own programs. It's like every day of being aware. And sometimes it can get overwhelming and I have to take a little step back and it's like, okay, let me one thing at a time. I can't change everything at once, but maybe this one area that I want to work on. And even helping with clients, it's like you can't change everything at once. So let's start with one small step. And maybe
mhm,
that is just sitting with yourself for a few minutes every day, just to listen to yourself and then starting from there. Maybe it's going on a walk. Maybe it's, playing music and just kind of having time to yourself in some sort of way. And in this busy society, especially if you're a parent, it's hard to have time to yourself.
oh yeah,
But
everybody's so
the,
organized, all planned out. You know,
everything's planned out and the weekends, especially if you got kids that are like in travel baseball or something like that. I mean,
yeah,
you're
it's totally.
every day is busy. So it's okay, let me just have 1 minute to myself, even if it's starting there, and just really just sit with myself for 1 minute and pay attention to what comes up and how I'm feeling, check in with myself. I have some clients like, hey, set a reminder throughout your day just to check in with yourself. You don't have to do anything, just check in. Where am I at? How am I feeling? Okay, now I'm done. Let me go back to my day. Just get building new habits.
Yeah. Well, building habits are sustainable. You know,
Yes.
because that some people will get into something like on a quick fix track. And
Yeah.
like if what they're telling you to do in their step program is not something you could do for the next
Yeah.
30 years,
Yeah.
like it's probably not going to work.
Right. Yeah, and I've done, retreats and things like that, and you leave the weekend and everything's great and you make all these changes and you feel fantastic, but okay, now what am I going to do every single day to continue this process? Otherwise, the old programs can easily come back in and then all of a sudden they just take over and you're back to the old self versus
Yeah,
allowing like, okay, I got to continue this. So what do I need for myself to continue to show up for myself to be on this growth path that I want?
because like we're in an all or nothing kind of society. It's like you hit it or you didn't hit it
Yeah,
instead of the little wins.
right.
Like
Yeah,
if you set yourself up that it's always got to be like you got to hit the goal exactly.
yeah.
Well, then you're gonna set yourself up for a lot of heartache.
Right.
Because it's
Yeah,
like no one ever hits it exact all
yeah,
the time.
all the
They may
time.
they
In the
yeah,
right time frame, the right manner, the right dollar amount, whatever
yeah,
it happens to be, there can be some
variation.
variations along the way.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you could be really good and you hit it more than most people,
Hmm.
but you're still not hitting it like the 100%. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like you gotta get yourself out of things that are not going to actually, get you where you need to be.
Mhm.
If you can stick with like I don't know, like the idea of law of attraction. And
Yeah.
always talk about people with like vibes, like feeling like getting pulled in a direction that feels like, okay, this doesn't feel like it's hurting me. This doesn't feel like I'm depressed. This feels like things are opening, that I feel opportunity. Right? I
Hmm.
feel that my voice is heard. That tends to look like, well, that seems like you're going in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's our feelings. I ask every client, like, if it was a circumstance that happened or a goal that they want for themselves, it's how we feel about it is really a key component of that because it's how we feel is going to show up on what kind of actions we're going to take. So if it's a goal, like a monetary goal, oh, I want to pay off my debt and I want money 6 months savings in the bank. Okay, imagine what that would feel like when you have it. because you can feel that in the moment today, and and you take that positive feeling of you're going to take different actions versus trying to like, oh, I have to get this done, and I'm grinding every single day, and I'm stressed, but I want to get out of debt. It's like, well, those are going to be different actions you're going to take, or you're going to show up differently for yourself. So how we feel about it is really powerful, to be able to make the changes that we want for ourselves.
And also, like, are you gonna get, like, when you get to that goal, did you think that that was gonna solve everything? 'Cause I think
Well,
there's
yeah,
a
it's
lot of
why
people.
did you want that goal? Like, what's
Yeah,
kind of the underlying factor of, because then some people get to their goals and it's like, I don't feel any different, or it's not very satisfying, or, I didn't become the person I thought I was going to be because of this goal. There's a lot of underlying
yeah, did
thoughts
they
and
actually address the underlying issue? Did they pick kinda the wrong goal point?
yeah, that's true
Because
too.
they didn't look at, like, people say, "I want $1,000,000." So why? Because I'm gonna be independent, or I'm
Yeah,
gonna be able to have my vision executed, or they just thought the $1,000,000 is gonna solve all the problems
it's going
magically,
to solve all the problems. Yeah, yeah,
but if you didn't solve, like, are you actually gonna be happy,
yeah. Are
or
you
do
still
you
the
have
same
more
person?
more problems?
Yeah, your personality, your programs, your habits, are those still the same when you get there? Well, you might have $1,000,000, which was nice, but you're still going to be the same person. You haven't made any changes for yourself along the way.
Yeah, because there's a lot of rich people that aren't happy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people have a lot of assets, a lot
Hmm.
of good things going on,
Yeah.
but they don't see it that way. Right.
Right.
So the person outside say, well, this person's got six pack abs, this person's got a Ferrari, they've got $1,000,000 house, but then you get inside their world and they're not happy at all.
Right.
And the
And I think
person
that's
like sitting on Main Street saying, well, oh, they must be happy.
right. They must be happy because we have our own story about who this person is because they're successful, or based off our own thoughts around somebody else. Like, oh, look at them, they must be doing great. Yeah. Well, they've got the money and they worked hard to get there, but they still could be unhappy.
Yeah, because like relationships, and like you said, relationship with yourself.
Yes.
So that relationship with yourself is still at the same point, and you
Hmm.
move in time. Like when you get to that next point in time, you're still back there at the beginning.
Right.
You didn't shift. Like all these other things shifted, but you didn't shift that.
Yeah. You
So
stayed the
why would
same
you think it
person.
would be different?
Exactly. But it's looking outside of ourselves to feel a particular way, and then when we get to that point, it's like, well, I still feel miserable, or I'm still not happy, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, there was something else to work on. And so being aware of that, and like, and some people that I coach, they show up and they're ready, and I know I need to make some changes and let's jump in. And other people show up and like, I just don't know where to start, I don't know what to do. It's like, okay, well, let's start somewhere. And I work on goals. Are fantastic to have, but it's also like, why do you want this goal? What are you making this goal mean about yourself? Who do you want to become? And even looking at your future self, when you get that goal, is that goal 6 months or a year from now? Who is that future self that you want to be?
Yeah. Could you get
And then
somebody that has
even,
a short-term goal, right?
mhm,
They want to get in shape because they want to go to their reunion and they want to look awesome.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
just for that
it,
moment.
right,
So that is like, okay, well, you're gonna match that moment, but what happens after that moment?
right, exactly. So that moment's gone, and then what happens? Well, a lot of times people just gain the weight back,
Yeah.
and just because, well, I have met my goal, and I'm still that same person, and now I'm going to go home.
Do you get people with these short-term goals that come to you that want you to kind of help them organize that? And then if you see somebody doing that, do you kind of advise them, well, maybe that's not the best roadmap?
So what I when I'm coaching, I ask a lot of questions to try to get as much understanding of how their brain is currently thinking, how it's felt in the past, where they want to be, so that and a lot of times throughout those questions will open up new perspectives that they may have not even have thought about for themselves. And so it brings the awareness for themselves of like, oh, well, maybe that's not quite the goal I want, or it is, but I want to handle it differently, or I want to show up as a different person to reach that goal. And so, and people ask me, what do you think? What do you think? It's like, well, it really doesn't matter what I think, because I'm not here to tell you what to do. So I usually will bring the questions back to them
Yeah.
and
Make
offer, like,
them make
okay,
them make
I'll
the
answer that, but let me ask you something else first. And usually that will bring up an awareness on them that they can, oh, okay, I can kind of see where you're at, type of
you
thing.
kind of walk them through their own story.
Yes, yeah, because I tell every client, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I'm going to ask the questions, and hopefully we can uncover, even if it's a thought, some thought that's holding somebody back that they weren't
Mhm.
even aware of, and it could have been something their parents said to them, or a teacher or coach, somebody when they were kids, that subconsciously is interfering with how they want to move forward. And whether it was, you got to work hard for money. I remember talking to a guy one time, you got to work hard for money. That's what my dad always told me. It's like, okay, how do you feel when you think that thought? It's like, I hate it. Okay, well, that thought's not going to work for you, because if you hate that thought, you're not taking the actions. You don't have the emotions to move forward on how you want to be for yourself. It may have worked for your dad, maybe it didn't, but it definitely doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
So it's okay, let's come up with a new possibility that does feel good to get you where you want to be.
Yeah, it's this idea that, work hard for the money, but what happens if you actually are passionate about what you do? Like, if
Yes.
you are like, when I run into a lot of, like, people who are self-actualizing, like, they're in the arts and they actually can be in the arts,
Yeah.
like, they're creative and they're able to do that creativity, and they're so happy that they're able to do it
Yes.
because they're in the zone they wanna be in, right?
Yeah.
Where you run into a lot of people in life, and they really aren't where they wanna be.
No.
They're people pleasers, or they've got imposter syndrome, or they got all kinds of other things, but they're not really where they wanna be.
Yeah.
And when you find the people that are where they wanna be, it's like, "Wow, how did you get there?"
Yeah. It's right. How'd you get there? And for me, it's the curiosity of their mindset at that moment. Like, how does that work for you? How did you do this? So like, I have my curiosity just to understand their brain in a particular way, because they are where they want to be.
Yeah.
And it happens for people, but it's also, we live in a society that, well, I got married, I have to go get this job. This is not really what I wanted to
Yeah, you
do,
have
but this is where I'm at
obligations, you have
now.
responsibilities, and
Irresponsible, and I get it. Like, I've been there, I understand. But it's also, okay, well, if this is where you're at now, what if you could still show up as a happier self, even if it might not be the job that you want.
yeah, like empty nesters that finally realize now I can actually do what I want,
Yeah.
right? But then it's like, "Oh, but what do I really want now?"
No, what do I yeah, I haven't been able to think about it for 40 years or
Yeah, so it's
whatever.
like, do they wanna go and actually go to that local theater and get involved? Did
Yeah.
I really wanna go be a painter? Did I wanna be an author? And now I can't say, "Well, the kids are stopping me because now they're 25, they got their own kids."
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, so
So,
I can't
yeah.
blame it on them."
Right.
It's like
Now I
it's
gotta
like
take
I better decide
responsibility for
what I
myself.
wanna do.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, it's creating that safe place, in an environment
Mhm.
is that's a lot of people have a hard time because, because of what we've been talking about, they kind of feel like, well, I'm kind of like waiting in this pool, and I'm kind of treading water,
Yeah.
and like I know how to tread the water, but I really don't want to be treading water.
But I really don't want to. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I do my best to create a safe space so that people can speak their truth. And I will, when I first meet with somebody, I'll never judge you. I'll never tell you you're doing something wrong, because your story is unique to you. It's not for me to tell you what to do. But I am going to ask the questions to open up some possibilities so that you can look at life in a different way. And then you get to decide if that's what you want. All right, let's figure out those steps. And also, it's a confidential conversation.
Mhm.
You tell me your story. It's unique to you. It's not for me to tell. You get to tell, obviously, whoever you want. But a lot of times we don't. I mean, we don't always have a safe space to truly tell somebody everything that's on our mind.
Mhm.
Or do we trust ourselves to trust somebody else with how we're feeling and how we're thinking? And so
Mhm.
it's, there's the trusting somebody else, there's trusting ourselves. So I believe I do a great job at that, and based off what people tell me, and I've heard a lot of stories. Um, and so it allows, the more open that somebody can be to trust me, the better opportunity is to get them where they want to be, so that I can help navigate that for them and
Yeah, it's that
show them.
transparency. Like,
The
you know,
transparency, this here's where you're at now, here's where you wanna be, let's bridge that gap, how do we get there?
yeah, I think the trust issues go back, you know, a lot of times to childhood,
Yeah,
like trauma and issues,
yep,
because like if you have that imposter syndrome, or you have, you know, folks who are engaging kind of psychological damage to your
mhm.
minds,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it's
It
hard to break out of like the bad environmental factors, like the outside
Yeah,
factors that you build in your internal self. Like, so you
yeah,
have this, like, your internal self has been molded, and
yeah,
goes
absolutely.
kind of both
'Cause as a
ways.
child, you don't know any different, you're just being told what to do, or you get sent to your room because maybe your parents can't handle your emotions, so you get sent away. So
Hmm.
that's okay, I just got learned, I gotta shut my emotions down because every time I had emotions as a kid, I got sent to my room. So
Yeah,
now
if
as
you
an
challenge
adult,
it, yeah.
I'm just gonna shut down. And so
Yeah, if
there's
you
that
were,
lack of trusting myself to even speak. Oh, what am I feeling? What do I wanna say? What's even on my mind? I don't even know how to do it.
yeah, if you've been told kind of top down, you can't have an idea in this house that's
Yes.
different than my idea.
Right.
You can't have a voice that not doesn't align to my voice.
Yes.
Right. So if you get in that kind of situation, then it's like it's hard for you to ever have a permission structure to find out, like, what do you really think? What do you really feel? Because
Yeah.
you've been told like you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to feel that person's feelings.
Yes. And that's what I think is really interesting to me to think about the corporate world when you have, let's say, somebody like that that goes into a meeting in a corporate world and they might have a great idea, but they don't speak up because of the way that they were programmed. So you got
Mhm.
20 people in a meeting and everybody has their own programs from childhood that are going to show up in this meeting. And you have this corporate structure on how you're supposed to act and behave, but it's still your own personality. So somebody might not say something, or somebody else might say a whole bunch because that's how they were brought up to be heard and seen. And then it's just these like, well, I didn't say anything because I'm not supposed to. That's not,
Yeah,
I'm
you get a
not
lot
supposed
of
to.
people. You run into it like I found that I used to be in bigger corporations, and now I'm in a more kind of a startup, a
Mhm.
smaller sized corp, kind of a small business. And
Yeah.
what I found over the years is like coming from more entrepreneurial spirit was like when I was in the corporate structure, people wanted you to stay in your lane.
Yeah.
When I'm in an entrepreneurial structure, I can wear a lot of hats. Some one
Yes.
day I'm going to wear an architect hat, programmer hat, analyst hat, QA hat, developer hat. Like I could, whatever hat I need to wear, sales hat. It's whatever
Yeah.
is needed at the moment because it's like everybody, all hands on deck. You can contribute. You'll get your
Yeah.
stock option. You'll get you're like you feel like if you do something, you get rewarded.
Yeah.
If you do something, it's moving the organization. Your voice is actually being like really heard.
And when everybody's able to do that, you can probably have some pretty creative ideas
Yeah,
because everybody is allowed to speak what they want and trust themselves that it's going to be heard. Whether it gets chosen or not, they at least get to be heard.
but it's really cool if you're in a room and there's 10 people in a room and you're hearing 10 voices, getting
Yeah.
10 opinions,
Yeah.
and the executive is actually listening to everything,
To everything. Yeah.
and everybody's is you make your case. You win the day or you don't win the day. But the thing is he's not playing favorites. It's like if the best idea is winning
Yeah.
on the whiteboard, then you're like, you feel like, oh, this feels like a fair environment. This
Right.
feels like everybody can bring their A game. And maybe I didn't get it today, but I could get it tomorrow. And I have gotten it yesterday. I did get it the day before, but
Yeah.
Johnny got it the next day. Then you feel like, okay, this seems like a better situation.
Right, versus the executive saying like, "Well, we're gonna just go with my idea instead
Yeah, his top
because it came
down is
from
like
me."
it's all my idea. It's like I'm the one. It's like my name's on the company and
Right.
everything's my idea,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of like there's a world like in comic books. I would just jump to that. There's the idea of work for hire and then creator owned. If
Mhm.
you're a work for hire guy, you created like a character and then the company owns the character.
Yeah.
If you're a creator owned, like you own the character. So you're more willing if you're in a situation where you're not going to get any of the money from the merchandise, from the film rights, from the video game rights. are you really going to bring your best idea to that company versus the one if you actually own it, you actually get the film rights,
Yeah,
you get the
there's a good
merchandising
thought process
rights?
there.
It's a different mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that mindset it plays our mind just it shows up in every aspect of our lives. And it's whether it's good or bad, if we like what the result we're getting, we not don't like the result we're getting, it's just that's how we're programmed is how we're going to show up in that moment. And then that awareness of like, oh, is it working for me? Is this is this company I want to work for? Or am I want to be hired for my creativity, or do I want to come over here and sell my creativity? It's and some of it works for it's
Different
an
reasons.
option for everybody.
It could be a different place where you are,
Yeah, exactly.
you
Different point in life. This is what it works now, but it didn't work over here,
yeah,
and
I
that's
mean, it's
okay
what
too.
happens. It happens to the best of us, but it's like the story I always point out is like Jack Kirby, famous comic book artist, created like Captain America, Thor, all that stuff, right?
Yeah,
He was a work for hire guy. Didn't have a problem with it until he got older and he started to realize that he wasn't actually earning from all the properties he created.
yeah,
So in the later life, he actually went independent and created some concepts that he actually created or owned.
okay,
They weren't as many as what he had done when he was in that other house.
yeah,
But like in his 70s, he created 10 different properties that we haven't really seen pushed, but all of his stuff from the 40s and the 50s and the 60s that was owned by a bigger house.
yeah,
That's what we see today. I would love to have his family push the ones that he actually did in the last couple of years of his life that weren't owned by those guys.
yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm always the guy I like to see what happens when it's really his idea, right? And
Hmm.
it's his full vision.
Full,
I've
yeah, the
always
full
been,
vision, true creativity, everything's out
yeah,
there, like
yeah,
every idea, thought. Yeah,
yeah. When people are not constrained
yeah,
by some artifice to not to you don't get the full picture,
yeah. And that thought of why would I want to put all this effort if somebody else is just going to make the money off it instead? So I'll just give them maybe it's a
yeah,
B or C work, and I'll
yeah,
keep the A work to myself.
yeah. And it's if you think about your life, it's like if you can feel like you have that safety or
Hmm.
you have the opportunity to be heard and
Yeah,
understood and compensated or actually people credited because sometimes you can be credited and you really don't get any money, but
yeah.
at least you got credited,
At least you got
right?
credit for the work that you did.
So people can actually know and have a high opinion of what you're doing, and it's not about the money; it's about the idea.
Yeah.
It's about the what your voice is saying.
Yeah, there's the thought like what is driving that artist in a particular way? Is it the money, or is it the being able to be creative in a way that works for them, that where they can truly just be open and honest for their creativity and whether the money is there or not. And again,
Yeah,
that's an individual thing. Whatever works for that artist in that moment is whatever's driving them in their thought process at that time.
yeah, because it's not always about like how many views did I get? Because the
Right.
cat video gets 1 million views.
Yeah.
But the video that actually says something really profound that actually gets somebody to pick up the pen or pick up the brush or pick up the guitar,
Yeah.
that might not get measured, but it actually could create a whole generation of people who say, this guy really inspired me. To get an example of that, like I like Lou Reed. Lou Reed inspired a whole generation of artists,
Hmm.
like in the alternative world. And his first band, the Velvets, in '66, monetarily didn't make any money. Didn't make any money. He started making money in the mid '70s because Bowie had listened to those records and
Yeah.
started pushing them and
Wow.
then other artists started to see, hey, this guy's really brilliant. So he actually picked up on the stuff that didn't sell and
Wow.
said,
That's awesome.
hey, this stuff is awesome. So
Yeah.
sometimes, it's not whatever time you're in. Like sometimes
Yes.
your work, you put it at out on in the world, and then it's not in the moment you were in that it gets recognized. So
Yeah.
that's not a reason not to put it out.
And I think that's what's for me looking at like TikTok as an example. There are so many creative people out there that whether it's a musician or some kind of an artist, colored
Comedians.
pencils, charcoal. I mean, there is some incredible people out there in this world that maybe they're just doing it for themselves or trying to grow a business. But either way, it's that is always something. And like I said before, it's been very intriguing to me to see the artistic side of humans. It fascinates me.
Well, I think that's what makes people want to get up. When you get people who get depressed, it's like, why should I get up? My
Yeah,
thing is like, I love to see new ideas. I love to
yeah,
see different people's uh um how they self-actualize, how they see the world. So if I see
hmm,
somebody's painting, they it's not in the gallery, but I see it up on TikTok. I see
yeah,
somebody on social media on Instagram post some original art, and I'm like, that's cool. They got this like worldwide gallery, and I'm able to get this vibe.
yeah.
Maybe I
Absolutely.
want them to do an album cover for me.
Yeah,
Go and DM them, and yeah, I ended up doing that one day. I DM'd this guy in Greece, and he ended up doing an album cover for me because I saw a post that he did, and he didn't really have a lot of people looking at it,
yeah.
but I looked at it.
But you said it intrigued you. You had a feeling was when you saw it, you felt a particular way, and you just like I want to work with this person.
Yeah, and that's the way I think that we have a unique opportunity
Yeah,
that we can connect with anybody on the planet,
yeah,
and if it's in our, we vibe with them, we
yeah.
could go with it.
I coached a kid, a high school basketball player in Turkey, and he spoke English, but it was easier for us just to message back and forth. So that's how I coached him. I never talked to him once, but it was all messaging back and forth
Wow.
and just helping him on his game and help him overcome some obstacles. And even, what I learned a lot from this kid. Fantastic. He's playing basketball in Italy right now. But one of the things, he was so nervous about showing up for games, like he'd put his music on and he'd really try to focus, but he was so nervous it was interrupting how he showed up on the court.
Mm,
So at one point, he just decided, and I didn't offer this, but just throughout all of our conversations, he was looking at different ways to like, what can I change? So he stopped listening to music. He just showed up with his teammates, laughing and joking and having fun before the games even started. So when he stepped on the
great guy.
court, because he was listening to this music that was just too hyped up, and the beats
Oh,
were too much, and it was just causing more anxiety. So
mm,
then he got on the court and he started to really take off. He was having more fun. He was still nervous, but not in a way that was influencing him. And it was just
yeah, he kind of
I
got in
love
the
this kid.
moment.
Yeah, he was able to just get in the moment, have fun, let go, laugh with his teammates, and then he showed up on the court in a completely different way.
And that's interesting. His communication with his teammates, instead of being in isolation, kind of
Right.
not connected,
Yes.
he actually went
Absolutely.
and got connected.
He went gotten connected to his teammates, and it showed up, and it not just showed up on the court, but it showed up with his teammates, it showed up with his friends, it showed up in other areas of his
Yeah,
life.
yeah. Because it's like
Yeah.
human beings, we're social beings.
Yes.
And some
We
people
are.
have kind of pushed the individual to the point where you're like, you get isolated.
Yes.
And it's like a big awakening when you realize you actually need the rest of humanity,
Hmm.
right? And if you can get yourself more connected, if you can get more in tune, if you
Yeah.
feel the vibes and be more expansive
Yeah.
rather than narrow focused. Not that you
Right.
don't have to focus on certain things sometimes.
Right. And it's okay. Like some of us, we need that. Okay, if I coach too many hours in a day, like I need my time. Like my energy is just, it's
Mhm.
spent. So like, okay, how do I want to regroup and just kind of let go and spend time with myself or my kids? So there's definitely time that we need. But at the other side of that is like, how can I connect with others?
Mhm.
And sometimes it's connecting like this, a podcast, or if it's a Zoom with somebody, or over the phone, if family members far away, but it's also in person, and just having that connection feels differently in all these different ways that we have access to nowadays.
Yeah, because we now like you can have that in person because there's some things nonverbal. Like if I'm trying to put together a song with a bunch of guys, I can actually do it through the web, which I've done.
Hmm.
But there's nothing like actually having them sitting in
Oh, I
my
bet.
studio.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, with
it's
a
different.
drummer in my studio with a guitar player band for 2 hours finding the
Yeah,
song. There's
yeah.
nothing like that. And, AI doesn't replace that. Nothing replaces that.
No,
It's
because they're
actually
just true feeling, like the emotions of the music, the beat, everything feeding off of each other is like that's got to be really unique.
yeah. When you find guys that have the same well, not the same mindset, but everybody could be different
Hmm.
personality wise. But then when they get together, it works. It's like a team,
Yeah.
everybody's the same, but it's like everybody's got certain talent.
Right.
Some
Taking
people have a
everybody's uniqueness,
yeah,
but a common goal of building something together.
building something together and being able to
Yeah.
know that it works. Like when
What's
you
that
have
like? Like, I mean,
what it's like
that's
you
got to be
just
such a unique experience.
yeah, when you get a groove with a couple musicians and it's nonverbal, like you're playing with a drummer and you start putting something down, the drummer starts nodding his head, and the bass player kind of pulls in, and everybody's kind of like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And when you're with really cool, like some guys, you got to keep on telling them like what the chord changes are, what note you are, what timing you're in.
Yeah.
But what I find that's really cool is when I'm with people and I don't have to tell them because they know what key it's in. They know
Yeah.
what chord they played. They know what the
It
time
allows
is.
you to probably concentrate on what
Yeah,
you're working on because you
yeah,
don't
and
have to.
because they're actually listening to it, and they don't have to kind of. To me, it's like when you have to tell people what you already know,
Yeah.
then it's like, why did you have to do that?
Yeah.
It's like that's what seems like redundant. It's like, there's
Yeah.
no need to do that, and so then you start wondering, like, what's going on with this guy that he has to do that? So then there's like, I get in a headspace. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to work with this guy, but
Yeah.
but yeah, that's kind of like you have to figure out like what do you prefer, right?
Mhm.
Not that you can't work with people, like, but you know what you like to do, and you know
Yeah.
what the moments that you like to be in,
Yeah.
and you seek out the moments that you think you're gonna work,
Mhm.
and that they sometimes it'll be hard. Sometimes it does take time to get to that point.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might have to work with a bunch of guys a couple of times before you get to that point.
Yeah.
Sometimes right off the bat, you're at that point.
Yeah.
And you have to decide like how much work are you willing to do, or how much patience do you have to get
Mhm.
to where your goal is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's a whole mindset behind that and the thought process of like, okay, are we getting there? Is this going to take a few times? Do I want to put all this energy into it? Is this going to work? But when it does, I can imagine that's just got to be a really great feeling when it just all comes together.
Yeah, that's just when like I've talked to film directors that said that their lighting guy did the right thing, their
Yeah,
sound guy did the right thing, the guy, everybody is like a team. The
yeah,
film director was telling me it's like a team sport. Like
yeah,
everybody on that scene has a role, and when they all hit it right, it's like it's like hitting that note. And he was a musician too, and he's like, just like when we're grooving.
yeah.
When I get that scene in that groove, it's the same thing. And I would imagine if you got to play somebody in sports, it's like this when you have you guys all connect and you do it right, and it actually
Yeah,
gets the outcome you were actually prepared for.
yeah,
Then it's like you're locked in.
absolutely. Yeah, I can think back to some of those moments, and they're unique and they feel amazing.
But I want to thank
Absolutely.
you for being on the show. It always goes by quicker than we ever imagined.
Yeah, I appreciate it. This was a fantastic.
We do have your ericspringberg.com. If people go there, what do they find on that URL?
They'll find information about myself, testimonials. They have the ability to sign up for a free 30-minute call. I always offer a 30-minute call for free because some people have never tried it before. I also want to know if it's a good fit between the two of us. Is it something that we will work well together? That's very important to me too, because I can't tell people what to do. I just want to make sure I'm working with somebody that's going to take the actions for themselves, and there's a trust involved. So but it's always free just to see what it's about, and then we can go from there.
Awesome. So that will be fully clickable. We were just on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We're going to be on all the other podcast platforms that you can listen to or watch by tomorrow. I want to thank you again for being a guest on the Family Liquor Goes podcast.
I
Appreciate it.
appreciate all your time. This was a wonderful experience. Thank you so much.
Have a great night.
You too.